there. Welcome to Cooking with Classy. I am Jen, your host for today. Let me take you back for just a couple seconds. There used to be this app, Periscope. Maybe you remember it. A whole group of ladies came together. We called ourselves the Scope Sisters. Well, every Monday I did something called Make It Monday because I had so many recipes that I wanted to share from my home to theirs. And now I have decided to bring it back. Only it is Cooking with Classy now, officially renamed, rebranded, if you will. I would not profess to be a chef by any means, but I do have quite a few recipes that are tried and true that I have perfected and that have become some of my family's favorites and some of your family's favorites. I have shared this recipe multiple times and it is my most requested recipe. This is my own homemade lasagna. Super excited to get started. Now first, the origins of this lasagna. My mom had her own recipe for lasagna and there were just a few things that I tweaked here and there as the years went by, and then things that I changed a little bit more till one day she tasted my recipe. She's like, no, this is not my recipe. You can totally take credit for this. Like, this is completely different. So I want to share it with you guys today. Now, lasagna can be cooked lots of different ways, and I think one of the biggest differences is the meat that you use. My mom uses Italian sausage. I'm not a huge fan of Italian sausage, so I just changed it. Why not? So I use breakfast sausage. This is the Jimmy Dean. It's all natural. One of the reasons I use this one is because it doesn't have any MSG in it. So I like that. The lesser the toxins I can put into a meal, the better, right? Can't say that it's 100%, but we're getting there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually browning this. I started this a little bit before so that I could kind of get the ball rolling here. So basically, I'm cooking it up right here. There's nothing in here except for the Jimmy Dean sausage, but I am going to add a teaspoon of my garlic here. And for those that are using a bulb, which a lot of the times I do use, you can just use 1 clove of garlic. Okay, while that is browning up, let me talk to you about some of the ingredients that we have here. We have mozzarella cheese. We have Italian style diced tomatoes. Now, my mom uses stewed tomatoes. My husband doesn't love the big chunks, so we just changed it based on our family's needs. So I do get petite diced tomatoes, but I make sure that they're Italian style. We have our parsley right here. We have our cottage cheese. I just use the Dairy Gold. We have pepper. We have 2 eggs. We have our Parmesan cheese, and then we have some water. One of the biggest things that I use is right here. This is another difference. I can't stand cooking noodles in a huge pot. So I get these awesome guys. These are the oven ready lasagna noodles. I always have these on hand. And this is our very first layer. I do take the noodle and I kind of chop it a little bit so that it fits perfectly in there. And sometimes I'll, crack a little bit of this. My husband swears by the fact that if you make this and put it in the fridge and just let everything seep in and kind of marinate together, it's 1,000 times better. Who knows if he's right or not, because I've made it all, put it right in, and I thought that it tasted just fine. Now, when you can see that there's a little to no pink with your sausage, you're gonna pour in your diced tomatoes, juices and all. Don't leave anything out. You're gonna pour these guys in. You're gonna get your tomato paste. Okay, and once you get all that tomato paste in, you're gonna stir that in, get it all nice and mixed together. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm at a higher altitude. I don't know if it's the different ingredients that I use. But I know that the other recipe called for a certain amount of water, and I've tried this multiple times, and just a half a cup is absolutely perfect. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stir this all up. I'm gonna cover it for about 10-15 minutes and just let it sit together, marinate together, and we are gonna start on our other layer of lasagna. Okay, so while that's cooking, now we're going to get into our cottage cheesy layer of our lasagna. Now you want to get about 4 cups of this, and you put some cottage cheese and the pepper. It always helps. Okay. And then we have our pepper. Let's put that in since it got all muddled. 2 eggs. Okay, I'm gonna just scramble those eggs just a little tiny bit while I'm doing this. Okay. Then we're gonna put in our Parmesan cheese. Okay, let's put in our parsley. Now this next part is a little different than typical, the typical lasagna. The way I layer it is just a little tiny bit different. So I do my cottage cheese mixture, and then I put cheese on top, then I do my meat, which means that when I repeat that process, then that means that my meat is going to be the very, very last layer. So there won't be cheese on top of this, but do not fret. You cut into this thing, it's gonna be cheesy, McCheesy. Don't you worry about that. Okay. So this is what I do. Let's start layering, shall we? Now you're gonna wanna make sure that you're only taking half of this when you put it into your first thing. So you kind of have to eyeball it a little bit, right? So I take this and I kind of mix it up. I've heard some people say, not everybody, but I've heard some people say, oh, homemade lasagna, that's such a chore. This is like one of the fastest meals to me. Like that's homemade, you know? It's so easy. I mean, I can remember it almost by heart. I mean, I've got my recipe right here, which by the way, if you go to my blog, the recipe will be there for you. So that way you can, I'm gonna start compartmentalizing everything. So Cooking with Classy will be its own little thing, and you can get all the recipes there. And that way you can have these for your very own. Okay, so I just kind of, I'm not overly generous on this first layer because I'm always nervous that I'm not gonna have enough. So I just really try to spread it. Now the reason I like to do the cheese next is because I love for that really, really hot meat to get on top of that cheese. So we're gonna take our mozzarella cheese. So just enough to kind of cover that layer and make it even. All right, and then we are ready for our meat mixture. Tap that off. I'm gonna get in here a little bit. Oh my word, I wish you could jump through the phone. The breakfast sausage mixed with the tomatoes, mixed with that garlic is heavenly. Mwah! Okay, again, you just want half of this, so you really need to eyeball it. You can't necessarily just cut it in the middle. I've tried, it doesn't work. So again, I'm not super, super generous with this first layer because I just want to make sure I cover the cheese completely. We have some really great recipes coming up. When I did the Make It Mondays on the Periscope app, it was all me, just by myself. And when I did it just this last November, as if it were that long ago, it made me miss it completely. I did it with other people that time, but I missed it. So I want to come back and I want to do this because it's something that I'm super, super passionate about. Good food. I think food is the 6th love language. Who agrees with me? All right, so we're gonna put our noodles in here. Now it gets thicker, obviously, as it comes up. So there's like that gap right there, and I just go in half. I mean, it's not a real science, obviously, or else this would look better, right? Right. So definitely try this. It's something that you can make and just put in the fridge. If you put it in the fridge, then you will want it to be in for about 45 minutes to an hour when you do bake it. At 350, if it's the freezer, it's very different, but that will be on the recipe card for you. When I make this, like if I were gonna put this in the oven right now, right this second, I would do it at 350 for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then you need to let it sit for 10 so that it can solidify, and then cut into it and yum, yum, yum. Yum, 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 yum. I'm very excited for the Classy, Cooking with Classy lineup. I do have some special guests, which is gonna make this super, super fun. For the month of July, you guys, that is when Disneyland opened. That is our month that will be devoted to Diz. And my favorite thing to get at Disneyland is the Monte Cristo sandwich. I have, however, found a recipe that I like better. Dare I say it? Yes, I do. I like it better. I think it's amazing. And even some of you might know this restaurant, Bennigan's. When I remember it being all the rage, these copycat recipe books. And I got one. And the only one that we've used from there, and it's not why I bought the book for a totally separate recipe, but it was the Bennigan's Monte Cristo sandwich. Then I went to go and help my friend Cheryl when she was moving to Texas. She was a little overwhelmed, so I bought myself a ticket. I went, helped her unpack, and as we were driving somewhere, I saw the restaurant Bennigan's, and I think I screamed. I was like, we have to go there. And sure enough, the sandwich tastes exactly like it. It did not disappoint, and it's amazing. I have made a few modifications to make it my own, just with the type of cheese that I happen to like. But we are gonna make Monte Cristo sandwiches for July, and I am so stoked. All right, so now we have our mozzarella cheese. All right, let's get this in here. So now you can imagine, with it being like so full, how are we gonna fit another layer? And if you do use too much cheese like my brother Justin did, you can't. But you will be able to, I promise. All right, so you get that in there. That looks good to me. And we don't necessarily need to skimp on any of the layers because we want to use all the rest of it. So now we're just going to put this on top. This is a great meal to take to someone that is moving in. A great, great, great meal to share with a neighbor. If my sister-in-law watches Sophie for me, I guarantee this is the payment she would want. She loves this lasagna, and that makes me so happy. So you'll see that our top is actually meat instead of cheese. Now this is so full that you are going to either want to put some tin foil down underneath it when you cook it, or a baking sheet, but I mean, that's obviously gonna mess with the heating of it if you put like an actual baking sheet underneath it. So what I would do is I would put tin foil underneath this. Clean this up real quick. I like a clean kitchen after I'm done cooking. So I would put some tin foil underneath this, and so that way it won't mess too much with the cooking of it. But also, when you are just gonna be putting it in, you don't need to cover it at all. You don't need to do anything like that. You just cook it as it is. So on my recipe card, I have, so I put it at 375. I think I upped it a little bit, but it's always been 350, but I've been doing it at 375 lately, and I've been good with that. So 375 for 30 to 40 minutes. If you put it in the fridge, then that's about 50 to 60 minutes. And then it takes quite a bit longer if you are making this into a freezer meal. I would let it thaw for a little bit in the fridge, then put it in. It's a wonderful, wonderful meal. Look at those layers. Oh, aren't those so superb and yummy? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some nonstick foil over this. I'm going to put it into the fridge, and I'm gonna cook it later for my family. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Cooking with Classy. You can go to my website, classybyjen.com, and you can find the recipe for this and make it for your family.